Another story written between the lines. There's meaning in those spaces, and what's yours and what's mine. Just another stale.
My name is Michael Viega. I am the communications editor for Voices, a world forum for music therapy. So welcome to the first live interview where we will be discussing authors and have a chance for you all to ask questions and to say hello. So I'd like to introduce right now Maevon Gumble. I said that wrong, didn't I?
You said Maevon. I think you're good. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And I think if you caught the beginning, we played a song by Maevon called Missing the Point, which is actually featured in the Journal of Critical Pedagogy and the Arts Therapy. Today we're celebrating their work, their article, Gendered Affirming Voicework, a Queer Autoethnographic Account. Along with Candace Bain, Maevon also was the co-editor of a special issue on queer and music therapy for Voices that was published in 2019. So welcome. Thank you for being here. And let's just start off maybe by introducing yourself in any way that you would like to introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Maevon, use they, them pronouns. White, non-binary, trans music therapist. I'm working kind of full-time and part-time in two different spaces. Full-time, I'm working in a local, I'm in the Pittsburgh area of Pennsylvania in the USA. I'm working in a community mental health center doing some mobile mental health services with older folks. And then part-time, I have my own private practice where I really focus a lot on this voice work that I've been doing. So it's a little bit about me. Yeah.
Becoming Through Sound, right?
Becoming Through Sound, yeah. So,
yeah, and it's a beautiful website and beautiful mission. Can you talk a little bit about that maybe?
You mean about kind of the work that
Becoming Through Sound, yeah.
Yeah, so it's my own private practice that I really am focusing a lot on working with particularly trans and non-binary folks, but really people of all genders, on their voice and in embodiment. I am also doing some music therapy, kind of mental health kind of stuff with other folks in the community as well. But really the work is about just offering music therapy services to folks in the Pittsburgh area. And recently I actually just opened up my voice work stuff to kind of online as well, across Pennsylvania, because it's just a lot of folks have been just enjoying being in a telehealth space and actually finding a lot of value in that kind of work. So
yeah,
is that helpful? Yeah,
that's very let's talk a little bit more about voice work and specifically gender affirming voice work, and just like to talk about both articles, really, the one in the current edition, but the one in the current edition, people should really go to the 2019 special issue on queer and music therapy, because this is really a two-part journey in a lot of ways, where the research it can't just be confined to one article. That this has been a personal journey, beautiful artwork, music. I mean, you really are so generous in sharing your research, and that research for you is me search and we search. And, I was wondering if you would just what stands out to you about that process and that journey of sharing those two publications with Voices?
Yeah. So initially, and I know, Mike, you were involved in this. So I initially, when I submitted an article to Voices, I was like, oh, I'm going to just submit my full thesis and they will tell me what needs to be edited out. And I got the feedback back, of course, that this is way too long, which I completely understand. And it sparked in me just my own, oh my goodness, this is not good enough, or like this, I need to fit into a certain thing. And I've reflected on this a little bit at the end of my most recent article, of just a little bit of regret about the way I ended up splitting it up. Because the first article very much became this like logical academic, I'm going to analyze everything.
Right.
And the second one is more of the creative, both of it contained my personal journey, but, in some ways I kind of got into this dichotomy, which queer autoethnography aims to like dismantle of personal as research, personal as academic, personal as important, valuable information for literature. And so in some ways I'm just humbled by the fact that I'm still not queering things in ways that I would love to be. But it was, that's what, mostly thinking about those articles. I wish that I just kind of broke them up in like just kind of a 2-part thing in a different way than I did.
The scholarship and the personal being separated when in this case it was not separate experience for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It was actually a really engaging with the literature was a deeply personal experience for me. And so the idea of like separating those out as like, okay, this is the literature and this is my personal journey with the literature. That was difficult because I would engage with material and not see myself, and had a very emotional response within that literature. So like that the journey to actually starting the voice work, which is like quote unquote maybe research, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't that. It was the journey to the literature and to but I definitely got caught in I'm going to put all of the academic analysis of everything into one space in ways that I regret a little bit, but I'm also grateful for just, I did this thing and I'm learning from it. So
in a lot of ways it gets to the old ways of how we might see scholarship and publishing, that publish more and have your name out there, and the more references you get, the more likely this, that, or the other would happen. And in a lot of ways, doing that for those reasons goes against really the experience of doing the research.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about gender affirming voice work and where you see it is right now for you?
Well, I think it can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people, depending on what they're hoping to get out of it. But I often introduce it as we're able to work with, voice and gender and the body in a way that we're supporting, it's about accessing and affirming and embodying affirming voices and genders within your life. And that can look a couple different ways. For some folks, we really sit in kind of the more kind of like psychotherapeutic kind of space of, the voice work that we're doing is more about identity. And I mean, it's all about identity, but it's really about managing some of the emotional relationships that we have with our voice and like fostering that relationship. Yeah. And then for some folks, a lot of the folks that I'm actually working with, it's both of these things, but primarily sitting on the other side of that spectrum of we're working on vocal function, like how a person is using their voice and shifting that to access either a different resonance, a different pitch space in their voice, just different like parameters of the voice. And of course it's both of those things, right? Like you can't separate identity from all of that, but it's been a good, to introduce it to folks, sometimes just saying, okay, we're working, are you more interested in like this kind of work, some combination of the two. And I really enjoy being able to sit in a space with folks and fluidly move. I think that's really important to the work, to fluidly move to address different needs that come up. So like for an example, if we're working on technique, on maybe trying to ground the sound in the body, And, we're spending a lot of time with that. And as we're doing that, the focus is not necessarily on identity at that point, but a technique. Like we're working on the sound in the body.
Right.
I've had folks who've had really emotional responses to that. And we've then shifted to, okay, we're going to do it a grounding experience within this. And in the moment had to adjust what we're doing just to kind of fit that and address the needs that come up in the moment, and then shift back to technique if that feels like safe enough to do in that moment. But yeah, I think that's where the work really is, in this fluid shifting to address different needs as they come up.
Yeah, and this work from you has stemmed from your own personal experiences, both within your own identity, and also as you begin to enter into the field and music therapy and explore its own methods and its own literature and its own ways, that you felt the tensions between what you were exploring.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you would talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I wasn't finding anything like this work where I was looking. In kind of the fields of speech language pathology, like that kind of realm of things. The voice was a very fixed thing from what I was reading. It was like, okay, and I'm not a speech language pathologist, so I'm coming at this with my own perspective as an outsider of the field,
Right.
But it seemed like a very fixed way of understanding the voice, of like, okay, there's all these different parameters of the voice, and we're going to adjust them to fit you into this box. And it was very binary, of like, we're really only talking about trans men and trans women. And even within that, like talking about trans women in terms of the speaking voice and talking about trans men in terms of the singing voice, there was really no variation outside of that from what I was seeing, except for a couple, like a handful of folks who were doing some really cool things. So I was getting discouraged, frustrated, of like not really being able to find something. And then also sitting in this space of, really, my mentor, my thesis advisor, Susan Hadley, we had this just really lovely conversation about, the voice, accessing something through the voice, because I was getting really stuck on, like, I either have to take hormone therapy for myself and lose the access to my singing voice in the ways that I intimately know it and love it and enjoy it, and also feel tension with it at the same time, so I might have to take hormone therapy and have to relearn how to use my voice, which I could do. There's nothing wrong with that. I just didn't want to. That's not something that I was willing to do, because I know my voice intimately. It's an important part of my identity as a musician, as a music therapist, as a singer. So feeling tension with that and trying to find a way out. And Sue ended up using this phrase of accessing through your singing voice, accessing a voice through your singing voice. And I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. It sounds so simple, but it was really a moment of like, oh, okay, this makes a lot of sense. I don't know why that was such a complicated idea, but it really opened up things for me in terms of understanding speech and song as synonymous and not as this different thing. Like right now, there's melody to my speech, there's rhythm, there's resonance, there's all these different musical qualities that are music. The fact that we have a singing voice and a speaking voice is, I don't know. I kind of disagree with that, but anyway.
Further into the binary. Yeah.
Yeah, further into this dichotomy that isn't quite helpful. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah.
I wanted to bring in the panel, and by doing so, I'm going to leave the space because we can only have 4 people on at once in the platform we're using. But I do want to just open it up as I bring in Natasha Thomas, bring in Dennis Fortenberry, and Key Slaughter to talk about work that you all are doing together, exploring voice work across various critical viewpoints. And I would be, interested in hearing the importance of voice work when working as both as a therapist and with people who've experienced the trauma of marginalization and oppression, and how that comes out in voice work. So, everybody, I'm going to bring in Dennis and bring in Natasha. And is Key still with us?
Uh-oh.
Did we lose Key?
I feel like we lost Key. She's not in my. If you could text her.
You can send a message to them.
Send a message to them. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we all doing it, or is one of us doing it?
one mass text.
Did we lose you? Come back.
I love the joys of technology versus
I know, right?
like it's telehealth. It's really thrown us all into a space.
It really has.
Roll with it.
But I suppose, I guess maybe while we're waiting for Key, maybe Dennis and I can just start with how we got together. Maevon, would that be okay?
I was actually going to say, can you take the reins on that? Because you're the one who kind of.
Yeah, so I'm Natasha Thomas. I'm at IUPUI, she, her, at the moment, possibly exploring other pronouns. I don't know. That's a story for another day. But yes, so I am in the music therapy program in the Department of Music and Arts Technology at Indiana University, Purdue University at Indianapolis, or IUPUI. And hey, Key!
I made it back. I didn't know I was lost.
Oh no, what happened? Your audio is gone. Your audio is gone. So we're literally just talking about how we got to know each other, or how we as a group came to be. So you have only missed me saying the long ass name of my university. So yes, IUPUI. So my department chair was letting folks know at the institution who I was and the type of research I was doing. Folks in music therapy mostly know me from my work with youth from limited resource communities, Black youth specifically, that have been labeled as at risk. And so Deb Burns, my department chair, sent that info out to folks saying, hey, anyone who wants to get to know Natasha and the work that she's doing, hit her up. And so it bounced from a few people to Dennis. And Dennis, you can maybe share a little about your background and where you are and how we got, and then I can chime back in with where things went from there.
Okay. So I'm Dennis Fortenberry. I'm a physician. You see him. I have my lifelong professional passion has been working with young people, with adolescents. I'm an adolescent medicine physician. I also began a clinical program for gender diverse youth, trans, non-binary, queer, giving them a place that didn't otherwise exist in Indiana to explore their identity, find a safe space, become connected if they needed that, and get support for their goals in terms of their identity expression. So over the course of that, in many conversations with young people, this idea of voice as something that was a critical part of their experience, both often in terms of their dysphoria with their voice, but also in terms of their expectations for their voice, especially as they were contemplating the possibility of hormone transitions, just fascinated me because it was such an intimate part of their experience. It was something that many struggled with. As Maevon said, for many it was a key part of their identity, and for many it was the part that connected them to anything in their school or with their family. It was their voice that gave them place when nothing else did. And many felt totally cut loose from much that most of us enjoy otherwise. So that part really fascinated me. Because I focus on young people, I get to listen to them change with puberty. I get to hear their voices literally transform over the course of a few months. And working with them became a part of what I see as an act of queering medicine as a profession, as a place, in order to make medicine serve the cause of social justice, which is what I think gender affirming care with young people does. And so when Natasha's email came by, I said, I am really interested in young people too. I would really be interested in thinking about how young people's voices change, particularly young, gender diverse people of color, because those are such critical pieces of their connection or potential connections to their communities and maybe back to their families. So back to you, Nick.
Yeah. Yeah. And that sort of like critical intersection that you mentioned of like race and gender got me really excited. But I also was very aware that like we needed to bring people in who were living at that intersection, like walking in the world at that intersection. And so I reached out to Maevon immediately because I was like, I know Maevon's work. Maevon should be here. And then I had gotten to know Key. If you want to share a little about your background, we had just socially connected through New Orleans. Like we missed each other in New Orleans just by a couple of years, a couple of months, maybe.
It might have been months or years.
Oh no, your mic's out again.
Oh, really?
It's not that for me. I don't know.
Okay, it might have just been
It's
me.
okay for me.
Okay.
Well, that's sad that Natasha can't hear. But we missed each other by probably some months or something. But I'm Key, and I'm a music therapist, vocal psychotherapy trained, and at the moment I work at Loyola University in New Orleans, where Natasha used to be, and working as a clinical coordinator there, and also have a private practice called Soul Folk Sounds that centers trans and queer people of color. And can y'all still hear me all right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think for me, I use they and them pronouns, identify as non-binary, trans, gender expansive. I'm a Black person. And I think for me, using my voice growing up with the spiritual imprint of like Black church, and also growing up in New Orleans where music was all around me, and also just music and singing and like vocalizing and vocal practice as a community practice was also really integral to my growing up. And there are ways in which it brought me a lot of freedom. It helped me to connect to community, connected me to lineages and ancestry and agency and power. And I think that's central to the work that I do. And over the years, I've worked a lot with adolescents and young adults. And yeah, just doing work that is, for me, connected to how we embody freedom, how we sing it, how we dance it, how we breathe it, especially in bodies and in identities that have been historically and systematically marginalized and oppressed, feels really, just really central to what I'm passionate about. So Natasha reaching out about this project and this team and just the seeds of these ideas were really exciting and really intriguing. So I hope y'all heard that. I don't know who's hearing what now, but
we definitely we heard it on our end. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what so we know what brought everybody together. Where are you hoping that this might go? It's so exciting that this is coming together into new avenues and new spaces, connecting it back to the articles and voices. Maevon, where are you considering this as an extension of your work? it's clear it's an extension.
Yeah, it definitely, I don't know, I was gonna say, is Natasha coming back? Yay, can we hear you?
Can you? I hope so.
Can you hear Key?
Yes.
Maybe.
Can you hear me? Can you, Natasha?
No, I don't know what it is,
Man,
y'all. This is the weirdest thing.
So strange.
We'll talk later.
Well, yeah, with the question, I see it as very relevant. And I actually talked when we first got together about how, there's so many avenues for this work and, just getting started. I definitely did not think about the racial piece because, of course, I'm a white person. That's, I should have been, I should have been thinking more about that stuff. I think I was, I am sitting there like this is a very new thing to explore and just owning the piece of, that's my privilege showing right there. So I definitely think this is relevant and it's come up. I work with several Black trans women and Black non-binary folks, and it's been really humbling to kind of sit in that space and have just realizing how necessary it is to really have research out there that really explores this. So I was grateful when Natasha was like, hey, we should do this thing. And another project is kind of still forming. I don't know, Natasha.
Yeah. Like, I think what's really cool about what we're doing is that we've been spending, because we got together towards the end of the semester. So COVID had just kicked in and this past summer has really quite literally just been us getting to know each other and building trust. And it just is so exciting to me to begin a research relationship that way, because prior to this, I don't know about any of the rest of you, but I'm a young researcher, like early career researcher. I don't know how young I am, but it's been mostly just like me or people in my PhD cohort, people that I have existing relationships with. And so this is a new thing to start a project with a team of people that I haven't worked with together before and to spend all this time trust building as part of the literature gathering process has been really, really valuable. And I don't know that every research project looks like that.
No. I don't think it does.
Most don't.
Yeah, most don't. Yeah, and Key just typed in our host chat. Agreed. Yeah. So it's refreshing, and I think that even just this process alone could be a really valuable model, as we move forward into drafting an IRB application and looking to build protocols for working with youth, and particularly youth at the intersection of gender and race. Bringing in those perspectives while modeling what it is to develop a healthy, trusting professional relationship, I think has the potential to be really cool.
Yeah. And I know we've also been talking about the piece of, at first we're like, well, we didn't explicitly say we're going to wait till COVID's over. And then that the reason that we're just going to plan for this to be where we're at doing this research. So.
Right. And that feels like queering too. Just don't wait for something to lock in. If there's anything I'm learning about gender, it's it doesn't necessarily ever lock in for some people, it just continues to evolve and expand in exciting and terrifying ways.
And terrifying. Yeah. I know Natasha can't hear me, but
I don't know other thoughts.
Relational piece of this, how we are building trust. And I think even early in our coming together was also we have been in these questions and naming our identities, our privileges, our biases, and how that's also informing how that might inform how we imagine and how we engage in this work together, which I think, is something that I'm grateful for as part of the culture and the praxis that we are cultivating, I think, as a team. And I know Mike asked a question about where we see this going. I'm excited to be in the sharing of this collective wisdom. I'm excited to develop programming that is COVID responsive and also affirming of various, of gender expansive beings. That is also challenging systems of oppression and trans prejudice, racism, in so many different forms and types, I think, of violences that are impacting these communities. And I think for us to be in the conversations and to be in the development of critical programming, relationship building that's helping to foster transformative kinds of healing and change through voice work that is in gender affirming voice work, I think is something I'm looking forward to being able to do with this group, with you all. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say my sense is that properly done research truly is a path to social justice. And the reason that it's so critical to me is that we have opportunities to literally give voice to people who not only have been unheard, but have been unseen. And that part's really critically important to me in this process.
Yeah. There's I've been spending this week in a research intensive, and the group that I'm part of for that is working on a collaborative autoethnography. And my partner is a dance movement therapist in that research project. And so we've been talking about applying gestures to concepts, and this idea of like what we were discussing today and what feels like it relates to what you just said, Dennis, is that idea of like opening or peeling back a curtain and being like, hey, look, do you see what's in here? What's always been here and what you haven't been looking at or haven't heard?
That's right.
Yeah. You know, like that's very much what it feels like that we're doing. Yeah. And now I have to confess, we're at this awkward moment where my spouse just knocked on the door that is a bedtime story with my toddler. So I may just have to zip out here for a second. But I'm really, really so grateful for this group and so excited for the work that we are doing, are going to do. And Maevon, just congratulations for everything that you're doing.
Oh,
like,
thanks.
It's really cool. Really, really cool.
Thanks.
So yeah. What? I don't know what happens now. Maybe Mike, if you want to like hop in and boot me off again, I'll sneak out the back.
Enjoy.
Thanks, Natasha. I see that we do have folks watching right now on YouTube and on our Facebook Live feed, and a lot of comments of gratitude related to the work. No necessarily questions right now that I'm seeing, but just leave maybe some space. Jennifer Hicks says, yes, I use this a lot with clients when giving them options for using their voices. Even our speaking voices are musical, so speech is very valid way of to be part of the music. Relating back to Maevon, what you said earlier about speech and our voice and our music voice not being separate entities. Jennifer also saying, so grateful for you all sharing this. Thank you. Kelly Mishi saying, thank you so much for this wonderful information. I had a few individuals in my functional voice class who were actually in the middle of transitioning gender. We were basically trying to figure it out together. The information and discussion is so important. So some comments coming in there. So thank you so much for being here. Just want to leave a little bit of space if there's any final thoughts or something that hasn't been said yet that you would like to say.
I have another research project that I'm actually in the midst of starting with a couple other non-binary trans folks, Ray Inman and Carter Schochner, where we're doing kind of in like a Mary Priestley style, if you're familiar with like the trio and like the start of that work. We're going to be splitting up into dyads and kind of co-exploring this work together, supporting each other with like gender exploration stuff and the voice, while also exploring roles and being in relationship and then having somebody on the outside kind of witnessing that. So I just wanted to plug them too, because it's a pretty exciting project that we're doing.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you. Yep. We have someone who commented, really thankful for the point about establishing a foundation of trust as part of the research process. So, yeah. Well, thank Dennis, Key, Maevon, Natasha. Thank you so much for being here for our first Voices Live. The broadcast will be will be shared on YouTube, on our YouTube page and on our Facebook Live page. And be sure also to check out our Padlet. I'll post a link to it here. Voices Padlet is a place where the public can join us in, sharing your own artistic explorations of our work, sharing comments, making a video, whatever you want related to the work. You can go to our Padlet page and be a part of it. Our hope is that through the live videos like this and Padlets and other information, that we're able to hear directly from those of you engaging in work and celebrating such great work like Maevon has shared with us. And so please go read their articles. They're in the current edition and also in the special issue of Queer Music Therapy from 2019. All can be found on Voices.no. All right. I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you so much, Maevon. All right.
Catch up with you all.
Yes. Bye.